Welcome to our channel, a portal to a universe where every frame tells a tale and each review leads to cinematic wonders. Get ready to be immersed in the enchanting world of film, where our passionate crew of cinephiles will accompany you through a range of emotions, from laughter to tears, as we discover the magic that makes movies unforgettable. Today, we'll watch a review video about third episode of House of the Dragon Season 2. Season 2 of House of the Dragon has been previewing the larger fight ahead, after the first two episodes quickly reintroduced viewers to the plot. The Dance of the Dragons, depicted in George R.R. Martin's Fire Blood History of the Targaryens, is a notorious and deadly conflict in Westeros, made even more devastating by the fact that it occurs amongst relatives. Before that, however, all of the required parts must come into place, but the prospect of conflict has proven no less alluring. The third episode introduces us to the Brackens and the Blackwoods, two families who have feuded for centuries. Their decision to choose opposing sides in the dance, the Brackens have proclaimed for Aegon, while the Blackwoods have vowed devotion to Rhaenyra, only adds to their long-standing animosity. However, what appears to be a harmless fight between naive teenage competitors over a boundary line suddenly transforms into the gruesome, bloody aftermath of a battle, with countless bodies strewn across the field. It may appear pretty heavy-handed, but it tells us all we need to know about what's ahead. This is a fight from which no true winners will emerge, and the cost of victory will be much too high to even be considered a triumph. Criston Cole is dressed for his first small council meeting as Hand of the King, wearing both a new chain of linked golden hands and his Lord Commander finery, but his isn't the only promotion to note. Aegon has named some of his most loyal buddies as Kingsguard, many of whom prefer to lean around and shirk their duties instead of maintaining watch. A gaggle of slacking whitecloaks is the last thing the new Hand can concern himself with, though. The stronghold in the Riverlands needs to be secured, particularly in the wake of the Battle of the Burning Mill at the beginning of the episode. Even if the Brackens did emerge somewhat victorious, albeit barely, the King's forces are too scattered, with armies still needing to be assembled in order to be of any use. Criston declares that he will personally go to the Riverlands with a small scouting party rather than wait for greater numbers, insisting that speed, and by extension the element of surprise, will give them a bigger advantage to both join up with the Brackens and claim Harrenhal. No dragons allowed, though. Vhagar and Aemond, Ewan Mitchell, need to remain to guard King's Landing. Before riding out for the Riverlands, Criston apparently has time to cut his hair into a fairly unfortunate new do, but at least now, his terrible outsides match his insides, am I right? He's also greeted by an unexpected addition, Gwaine Hightower, Freddie Fox, Alicent's brother, who the Dowager Queen, Olivia Cook, insists will accompany Criston into battle. The tension between the two men is impossible to overlook, particularly because Gwaine levies remarks at Criston about usurping Otto, Rhys Evans, as Hand, as well as the Lord Commander's Dornish heritage. It wouldn't come as any big surprise if Gwaine happened to meet with some misfortune on the road, particularly because he's not interested in lying low on the way to the Riverlands. Why camp out in the woods when they can lay their head to rest in the closest inn? But Criston realizes that, as they stand around debating the necessity of subterfuge, they've left themselves exposed beneath the open sky. Sure enough, Baela, Bethany Antonia, and Moondancer are scouting themselves close by. While the young dragon rider doesn't engage the knights directly per Rhaenyra's orders, only by chasing them to the forest's edge is she able to authenticate Criston's identity and provide Rhaenyra and her advisors with an estimate of the scout party's intended location. Back in the Red Keep, Alicent and Helaena, Phaya Sabin, ponder on Jaehaerys' death, with Helaena admitting that she should be grieving more after the death of a child, but also emphasizing that her predicament is not unusual, particularly as a parent. Sadness is a condition of motherhood, Alicent observes, and it appears that she is referring to her children as they are today, rather than as babies. She is certainly far more emotional than Helaena, but when Alicent's daughter offers her the forgiveness she has been seeking for, it absolutely surprises her, because it is most likely the last place she expected to find it. Meanwhile, Aegon, rallied by his White Cloak pals, is being dressed in a suit of Valyrian steel armor, intending to ride to war himself on Dragonback. A few carefully chosen words from Larry Strong, Matthew Needham, however, manage to stay the king, and in return, Aegon grants him an official job title as the council's new master of whisperers. After that, the king and his cronies decide to make it a night on the town, descending on the street of silk to party and help deflower one of the knight's new squires. When they discover Aemond in a room, curled up in brothel Madame Sylvie's, Michel Bonnard, arms. A drunken Aegon aims to humiliate his younger brother in front of everyone. After a long, silent pause, Aemond climbs out of bed, refusing to hide his nakedness, and walks out of the room, but it seems this insult might carry an even harsher sting in the long run, especially as tensions only continue to build between brothers. At Dragonstone, Rhaenyra, Jace, Harry Collett, and Rhaenys, Eve Best, are standing vigil while the Cargill twins, Elliot and Luke Tittenser, are buried side by side. Once the two women are alone, Rhaenys astutely points out that Otto would never have issued such an order, so hotter tempers must have assumed authority. It's becoming more difficult to name the precise starting point of this conflict, as Rhaenys observes. Was it Jaehaerys' murder, Luke's, Elliot Gryholt, death at Aemond's hand, or the day when Luke, Harvey Sadler, took Aemond's, Leo Ashton, I? We teeter now at the point where none of it will matter. Rhaenys urges Rhaenyra, then, to consider the possibility of contacting Alicent with the hope of preventing an even greater loss. Turns out Alicent had been the one to reach out first, sending a raven bearing a message after Luke's death, but Rhaenyra hasn't been able to bring herself to read it. At least not yet. In the wake of essentially saving Rhaenyra's life from an assassination attempt, Mysaria, Sonoya Mizuno, never got around to actually leaving Dragonstone, but now we know why, to earn some form of reward. A place at Rhaenyra's court is what the former White Worm seeks, but as the Black Queen soon realizes, having an expert spymaster at her disposal, particularly one who knows the inner workings of the Red Keep and those who reside within it, will only be a benefit. Besides, there's no love lost between Mysaria and the Hightowers, whom she, rightly, blames for burning her home to the ground. Beyond that, she has ties to the small folk of King's Landing, whose favor Rhaenyra could always stand to earn, particularly after Aegon's vicious string of executions. Between the two heirs who could sit on the Iron Throne, Mysaria says, only one has displayed the capacity for mercy, but Rhaenyra also admits that she doesn't want her mercy to be confused for pliancy. Meanwhile, Daemon, Matt Smith, and Caraxes have flown to Harrenhal, and the once largest castle in the Seven Kingdoms has been reduced to a burned-out shell of itself, largely abandoned. Daemon is ultimately greeted by a small contingent of occupants, led by Castellan Simon Strong, Simon Russell Beale, a welcome sight for us loyal Penny Dreadful fans. The uncle of Lionel Strong, Gavin Spokes, displays no resistance, pledging loyalty to Rhaenyra and the Blacks. In the aftermath of the fire last season, which led to the deaths of both Lionel and Harwin Strong, Ryan Sorar, the consensus, correctly, seems to be that Larys had a hand in orchestrating his family's deaths. Since Larys is also allied with Aegon, that makes the decision to position the remainder of House Strong in opposition an easy one. Before Daemon can do anything else, however, Harrenhal requires fortification, but it also means he'll be in place to confront Criston, Gwaine, and the small party riding right for this castle. But Harrenhal, which has always had a cursed legacy, seems to be haunted by its own ghosts, and Daemon experiences an intense nighttime vision during his stay in a scene straight out of a horror movie, which culminates in an unexpected appearance by a young Rhaenyra, Millie Alcock, cradling the body of Jaehaerys in her arms as she personally sews his head back on. "Always coming and going, aren't you?" she says, "and I have to clean up afterward." When Daemon finally snaps out of it, he's standing in the God's Wood, far from his original quarters, with a dark-haired woman, Gael Rankin, watching him from a distance. We don't know her yet. But we'll likely come to, especially as she ominously remarks that Daemon will meet his end at Harrenhal. Back at Dragonstone, Rhaenyra's reluctance to engage in all-out war, particularly one fueled by dragons, butts up against her council's urgings to escalate. The fact that she has to stand in opposition to a group of men who are questioning and second-guessing her every decision isn't subtle, and it plays into the very likelihood that even those who have pledged their loyalty to Rhaenyra may find their faith shaken, or are secretly so craven that they desire to be as close to her power as possible. When her advisors toss out the idea that she go into hiding while they make decisions in her stead, Rhaenyra openly balks, considering the suggestion tantamount to treason. Her position as ruler has never been more precarious, not merely in terms of perception across the Seven Kingdoms, but within her own council. Amid everything else going on, Rhaenyra begins efforts to send her youngest children as far away from the field of battle as they can get. Joffrey, Oscar Eskenazi, will head to the Vale to become the ward of her cousin, Lady Jane Arryn, with his growing dragon, Tyraxes, accompanying him for additional protection. But she also asks Rena, Phoebe Campbell, to take her youngest sons, Aegon and Viserys, to Pentos, where they will shelter in place until it is safe for them to return. It feels like a thankless task for Rena, who hardly wants to play nursemaid half a world away, but Rhaenyra also entrusts her stepdaughter with the safekeeping of 4 dragon eggs to prevent them from falling into the hands of their enemies. It's a bittersweet farewell for all, including Rhaenyra and her children, but also Rena and Baela, as the sisters embrace without knowing when they'll see each other again, or if they ever will. Having finally worked up the nerve to read Alicent's letter, Rhaenyra asks Mysaria to assist with arranging a meeting for them. A last-ditch effort at finding a path to peace. While it was certainly possible for Daemon to sneak into the Red Keep in the dead of night back in Episode 1, Rhaenyra has to adopt a different strategy, disguising herself in the robes of a septa so she can surprise Alicent outside the castle walls, since the Dowager Queen is known to pray in the Great September of Baelor. Although Alicent is understandably astonished to see her former friend, she does not raise the alarm, enabling Rhaenyra to present her argument. At first, the possibility that these two women will be able to avoid a war appears tantalizingly close, and even when Alicent realizes that she had misheard Viserys, that he hadn't named Aegon as king but was instead alluding to Aegon the Conqueror and the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy by referencing the prince that was promised, uncertainty flickers behind her eyes. The episode's last few minutes are a visceral reminder of how brilliant Darcy and Cook are as scene partners, and how much has been lost now that their characters are not only emotionally but physically separated from one another. When presented with the opportunity to set all issues aside and move forward in peace, Alicent doubles down, insisting that no error was committed on her part. The last glimmer of hope fades from Rhaenyra's face as she realizes Alicent no longer has any control over the men she's allied with, not Otto, not Criston, and certainly not Aemond, and that, once again, men will dictate what happens, rather than the two women who could have stopped it all. That's the end. Unlock the secrets of storytelling through our video, our YouTube channel's guide to the art of cinema. Join us as we delve into the narratives, the characters, and the sheer enchantment that movies bring to our lives. From script to screen, we've got it all covered. Join us as we analyze, critique, and appreciate the magic of movies. Subscribe to our channel for more videos.